or go live. But we are live on Multiplex. Cody Newberry has a show. Chaos has started. Welcome to Your List Sucks. Basically, this show works as everybody gets... I'm on every ranking show all the time, and I tell people that their opinions are terrible. I have put some of these people on the panel that have felt my wrath on different ranking shows, so we're going to experience that today. The topic is 2010 animated movies. It has to be released from 2010 and onward, and the fun thing about this show is I have no opinion in this. I don't get to compile a list. These make the list for my show, and I get to tell them how I personally feel. I will start with one of my first panelists on here, Brooklyn, Black Lantern Vail, the Bert to my Ernie, the douchebag to, I don't know. But we have you here. How are you feeling? What do you think about the show idea? And do you think we're going to hate each other even more after it?
Well, this show is typically like a regular Sunday for us. It's more so, I think Simpsons is the greatest theme song. You're a pile of shit. I think DuckTales is the greatest theme song. You are not quite a pile of shit, but it's not as high as everybody thinks it is. I'm happy to support a cause. Cody gets a show of his own now. He no longer has to be the guy who kind of struggles in last minute. So props to him.
Yeah, and maybe you can rewrite history on this one. Cain, my tag team partner, really good guy. We disagree on some of the movies. Let's see how bad we disagree on this one. Are you excited for the show?
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's a show that I think will be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for you to yell at people, especially like Kaleb Koho or Ryan Permison, because they have the hottest of the hot takes. So that's not this episode, but it's probably gonna happen in the future.
Yes. And a man that I did not include when I first reached out to people, and that was a mistake because there's no guy that loves animated movies more than Nazario. Nazario, are you excited for the show? Again, it's going to be a work in progress. We're going to work out the flow together, but are you excited?
I like cartoons, and this is going to be fun. Actually, it's an interesting thing because, of course, I'm not a kid. I haven't been a kid for a while, so I have a lot of nostalgia for older animation. And looking at the most recent stuff, I was actually very surprised at the amount of good quality things that they have actually been able to do after 2010. Because mostly I just figured it was gonna be a crap fest. A lot of Fox and DreamWorks very low quality films, but I could find actually a lot of good stuff. So this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, so how the show basically works is, again, I have no opinion in this. I have an opinion, but I don't get to make a list. These three submitted their top 10 lists to me. They don't know what each other's have on their list, so basically they're going to break down their 10 through 1 as we go to discuss why this movie made their list, why it stood out, and why it beat all the other ones, why I roast along with them. How it's going to work is pretty much we're going to start with Brooklyn. He's going to give us his 10. He's talk about why he chose that movie. If it's on Cain or Nazario's list, they will bring up that, hey, we need to talk about this later because you're crazy and it needs to be higher. And at the very end, I've compiled all their rankings, put them on the list by themselves, and I will tell them how wrong they are by their combined top 10 lists. So, Brooklyn, I'm going to let you start off the show. What is your number 10, sir?
All right, starting at number 10, we have one of the more recent releases on this list. That is Incredibles 2.
Ooh, Incredibles 2 really stood out. Okay, tell me why this was the final spot on the list and why it went above the stuff that could have made it.
In theory, this could have been a lot higher. I believe Incredibles is one of the top 5 films ever made. So when I watched this, I had a lot of expectations considering the first one. It didn't hold up for me as well as it did. I liked the ideas that they were going for, but the way that they talk about Jack and the way that they sort of evolve him, and then they sort of try to center it more around Elastigirl, who I think kind of got shorthanded in the first one. And it's not necessarily like a rehash of the first. It's not necessarily sequelitis where it's like a rehash of the first one. I think there are progressing storylines where you have Bob Parr. He's struggling with kids who are trying to be teenagers, because I've talked to other relatives themselves, and they said dealing with teenagers is like being a parent again, and I think they explored that well. But yeah, I think it's not as great as some people claim for it to be.
I would say this movie, in my personal opinion, missed the mark. Being gone for so long, I don't think it lived up to what the first one was. I think the first one is magic. I think this one was bending to social norms that have been set in the world, and that's kind of where they went. And I think that's fine. I just don't think it lived up to where I needed it. So a top 10 in 2010, I think you're nuts. But again, your list, whatever. Can you give us what number 9 is?
So number 9. This is gonna get an oof from some people. I have Minions at number 9.
Oof.
Does anybody on this panel or in God's green earth have Minions on their list? Hell no. You child, please tell me why Minions beats Incredibles 2 and also beats all the other things that you left off your list. Please tell me.
Okay, so a bit of an asterisk. I'm a married man, and my wife hates going to the theaters, so I don't get to see a whole lot of movies. But this one caught me off guard as to like how much I enjoyed it. When I watched it originally, this brought me back to the style of humor that my dad and I have, where it's more so based on like dialect and sort of like your cadences. And I think that the Minions did that well, considering that their language is essentially gibberish. I think you were able to guess the idea of what they were trying to say, and I thought that worked out really well. This is one of those movies, I believe, as well, that works great for kids, but adults get some laughs as well. And generally, the movie, I think, just gets shit on a little bit more than people do.
Yeah, well, I have to disagree with you there that this is one of those movies that was definitely not made for adults anywhere near them. I think it took what Despicable Me was and shit on it. But hey, you heard it here first. In Canada, him and his dad speaking gibberish at each other, and they find it hilarious. So, number 8. Please tell me what your number 8 is, and please let this misery end.
So we're going to go back to probably a more mainstream pick. Number 8 is Finding Dory.
Okay. Anybody else got it on the list? Okay. You are shooting over 3 right now, so this should be an interesting list. Please tell me why Finding Dory, the king of the sequels, makes this on your list. So,
I would agree. I would say the same thing I said with Incredibles 2 in relation to Incredibles, where Finding Dory didn't quite hit the mark again as well as Finding Nemo did, but I thought the story was a lot better in terms of really trying to explore why Dory is the way that she is. I thought Eugene Levy and I think it's Catherine O'Hara who plays Dory's mom, but could be somebody else. But I thought they did a really good job of being parents of somebody who has some form of intellectual disability. I think there's a general sense of caution, and I loved those performances as well. Ty Burrell was good in his role, I think, as like the deaf whale, and I think there was a great supporting cast. Ed O'Neill was also really good in the octopus. But I think it was a great way to sort of be a sequel and yet alone a spinoff where you have somebody sort of discovering themselves. It's like a sequel, but also a prequel at the same time, where you can sort of go back and forth, and I think they got that pretty darn right.
Yeah, disagree 100%, like I would normally with you. This I think is just a rehash of the first one, but hey. This is your list, and you're already hurting me really bad on this. So I'm going to switch over to my team partner, and hopefully he doesn't hurt me as bad. Cain, please give me your number 10.
Yes, my number 10 is the box office phenom of Frozen.
Anybody got Frozen? Nope. All right, Frozen misses the list. We're 0 for 4 right now. Tell me why Frozen made it, and why it ranked higher than the ones that could have missed your list.
I think Frozen definitely deserved to make the list on the music alone, but then the story itself is actually kind of good. It gets a lot of hate for some reason. And it's like, I'm not going to say it's the best movie of the 2010s that Disney's made, clearly, because I'm going to have a lot more higher. But it's definitely not the it's not bad. Everything in comparison from like the early 2000s with like Bolt and like Home on the Range, this thing is so much better. There's a reason why so many people love it. I kind of stuck watching it at least 2 times a week with my sister, so maybe that's why it made the list. I'm not sure, but it's not that bad.
Okay, I think that one has the that it was in theaters and it did so well, and they're pushing it down your throat. It's a cool thing to hate at the time. I probably wouldn't have made my list fully, but I understand why it's renowned as one of maybe the top 10s. Let's go to your number 9. What is your number 9?
My number 9 is the only thing that can appear in 2 fandom categories. Big Hero 6.
Anybody got Big Hero 6 on their list?
Wow, I'm hurt.
Oh, we are 0-4-5. All right, please tell me why.
I just dropped 2 Best Animated Picture winners, and neither of them are on people's list.
This is going to be an interesting battle. Here we go.
Yeah, Big Hero 6. I thought it was a story of just like, it's kind of just, for me, it's the classic kind of Disney thing where it's like, oh, someone loses someone, but then they have to learn to live without them and still kind of do it in a cool way, especially in the superhero world that we are in now. And just to kind of like take that theme and then just modernize it in a really cool way made me really excited. I think there is some things that they could have done better, but at the same time, it's just really good.
Yeah, Big Hero 6 did take me by surprise. It did the classic character and sidekick and kind of made people fall in love with the sidekick. Again, maybe not made my personal top 10, but I can understand, again, why this made your list. It's way better than somebody else's number 9, but we'll talk about that in a second. And give us your number 8.
My number 8, continuing with this theme, is Wreck-It Ralph.
Anybody got Wreck-It Ralph?
Wow.
You all are rat bastards, and I don't know why I have you on this list. Kane, please tell them why they're wrong, and please tell me I couldn't agree more. I maybe would have put this a little higher, but please tell me why this makes sense.
Wreck-It Ralph is a story of a guy who wants to do good in the world, but he has been told that he is forced to be a bad guy. And then it's his journey of him wanting to do good and then meeting someone who he can do that with. And that person is a glitch, essentially. And it's just, I think it's a really good story. And just the whole aspect of just Ralph's journey and Vanellope's journey, and then King Candy as a villain is pretty good. Just there's a lot of things, and it's one of the few I think original Disney stories out there, at least in modern day, which is kind of cool to see that. And I think they explored that world very well, even in the sequel. I'm really surprised it's not on people's list. I didn't expect to talk about it right away.
We're 0-6. Just because you're a bad guy does not mean you're a bad guy. All right, Nazario. Tell us your number 10 and why you hate Wreck-It Ralph. No, we'll wait for that in a second. So, what's your number 10?
This is obviously the hardest spot because it's when you run down to that point where you only get to put one movie, and it was basically like a 3 or 4 movie tie for this spot. But I decided to go with my personal preference, and I chose Paranorman from Leica. Okay. I just don't think
anybody else's list.
Okay,
man, guys, 0-7. Oof. Here we go.
Yeah.
Tell us why this one makes the spot and why it beat out the other one.
Like I said, the beat out part is more like a personal preference. I always have had a preference for like gothic or scary movies, especially for children. It's something I particularly like because I think kids nowadays get things too simple, and there's nothing bad with a little scary. And Paranorman is actually a really smart film about a small town that has a dark secret because it was a town where they used to hunt witches back in the witching hunting days. And now there's a family that takes care of something they have to do every year to don't let the spirits come back. And the person who has to do it dies, and the star zombie showing up in the town. And Paranorman is a kid who can actually talk to ghosts, which is not scary because he can talk to them like they're real people. And he becomes the key to solving this. It's also a stop animation, which is an art that I really wish doesn't get lost because it has a tactile feel that is really, really interesting. And overall, I kind of love this movie.
All right, yeah. I've seen it once. Wasn't a huge fan, but you liking dark cartoons, what a shocker. I would have never guessed that. Your next one, can you get something that everybody else has? Let's find out. What is your number 9?
My number 9 is DreamWorks' How to Train Your Dragon from 2010.
We're going to talk about that later
We're going to talk about that. Okay, we found one. Let's talk. Woohoo! Okay, and we'll go to your number 8 right now. What is your 8?
My number 8 is actually I think Disney is going through a renaissance again now in the 2010s. Actually, that started basically in 2011, but this is the one I think they hit out of the park. I picked Zootopia as the best Disney picture from the 2010s.
We're talking about that later.
Okay. So, hey, Nazario found the magic to hit 2 people. Just real quick, a quick blurb from each person. I would like to know, what do you think about the other people's bottom 3? Just quickly.
Paranorman does not surprise me from Nazario in the least. How to Train Your Dragon, I haven't watched any of the trilogy. And then Cain, you couldn't pay me to watch Frozen. Big Hero 6 is a notable gap in my animated pedigree, but yeah.
Nazario, anything to say about the other two's list?
I think Cain actually picked some solid movies. He hit a couple of my honorable mentions that actually I struggle with leaving out. And Brooklyn Minions, really? The Penguins of Madagascar were funnier, man.
Okay, and Cain, what you have to follow that? What do you think about the other people's bottom 3?
Minions should not be on this list. Minions might be in like the top 10 worst of 2010s, but like that's my opinion. I have beef with Zootopia. I don't think Zootopia is the greatest movie ever. So that's just me. But
yeah, and my viewpoint on your guys is some good, some trash. But we will talk about that a little bit later. Brooklyn, please take us through your 6 through 4, and let's all get our barf back.
You mean 7 through 4? I haven't talked about 7 yet.
Yeah.
So 7 I feel like is going to be, we're talking about it later. Toy Story 3.
Okay. Nazario.
I got that way high.
Okay, he's going to talk about that later.
Okay. So 6 was was one that we skipped a little bit ago. Was Zootopia.
All right, Zootopia. So Nazario and Brooklyn talk about Zootopia. Cain, you can talk about why you didn't like it or why I didn't make it.
So first off, Zootopia is fucking beautiful in terms of like the animation itself. I think in the 2010s in particular, there's like 3 separate ways of how to animate a film. You have like your photorealistic, you have your stop motion and your sort of like neo-German expressionism, and then you have your sort of like your cell shaded, your animated stuff, similar to like Borderlands video game, I guess. But I think in realism, this is probably one of the best animated movies visually.
Okay, Nazario.
I think Disney went back to kind of the style they were using in the 70s for anamorphic animals in that era and made it modern with the CGI. Besides that, I also believe that the movie is really, really smart. I never in the mystery of the story as much as I was, because it doesn't take the kids lightly. It's actually a very smart and deep movie, and it makes sense.
It does. I think there are some great performances in this one. J.K. Simmons, especially as Lionheart, is one that I like as well. I think the sort of twist, I can understand with that twist why Cain is sort of is upset. Maybe that isn't one of the reasons why Cain is upset, but I can understand that when people are like that twist sort of sucks. But yeah, I think there was some great action, there were some great heartfelt moments, and I think. Yeah, like sort of to go back into the statement that I previously made, I think just the production and the sort of the atmosphere that they're able to create in this can't go sort of passed by.
I also want to say, speaking of jokes for adults in kids' movies, making a reference to Breaking Bad in a Disney film is just great.
Okay, so Zootopia, I'm kind of on the side as when I first watched it, I really loved it. Rewatches, I don't think it holds up as much because. Again, that movie holds on like some twists and stuff, and once it's let loose, this is the battle of I think 2016. Cain, go ahead, say your piece.
Okay, so my issue with Zootopia, I hope this makes sense to people because there's a good chance that it doesn't make sense. The thing about Disney animated movies is they're supposed to be magic. It's supposed to feel magical when you leave with it. Zootopia, I never felt that. It felt very political, like they were shoving information down your throat. And honestly, I almost get that sometimes from like Pixar movies. And this is supposed to be Disney animated. They're the same company, I get it. But that is one thing that just, it left me with a sour note every time I watched Zootopia. Frankly, Brooklyn, I don't want to go like Nerdgasm on you in here, but Moana, same year, way more beautifully animated. Coco is the next year. That movie is one of the most beautifully animated. The Good Dinosaur, terrible movie, beautifully animated. So I think it's just a common thing with Disney movies like nowadays that they're just naturally just very beautiful to look at. And it's just one thing. It's just so political, and I don't want that when I go to watch.
What are the political aspects though? Like I can understand where it's like, oh, it's a female cop who's struggling.
No, I think it's the race thing, and it's thrown, and then it kind of boils back that the animals are still who they are at the end of the day, and it's weird. I get the viewpoint. This is not a Nerdgasm of Moana versus Zootopia. We've said our piece. We're getting our viewpoints. This is not a 7-hour show, but yes, Zootopia.
It could be
little high for me. We'll talk about that later. Go ahead and give us your next one, Brooklyn. You got 2 more to go through. So
all right. Next one is gonna be Lego Movie.
I have
okay. All right. Nazario saying we're going to talk about that later. And what is your final spot of this round? And tell us.
So the final one was actually one that was mentioned in why Cain thinks Zootopia is awful. Coco is my number 4.
That's gonna be. We're gonna talk about that later.
All right. This is a really fun battle. I can't wait till the end because a lot of these are now moving up. We're finally hitting our groove as a team. Cain, give us your starting point.
My number 7 would make it quick because I feel like it's gonna get pushed as the Lego Batman movie. I've broken the Disney.
That's what we call it. Cut in half. That is taking a baseball bat to a golf ball, and you're crushing in the woods.
We don't use the term punt here. Way to break the rule. 30 minutes in. Sure. So. Okay. All right. So we'll talk about apparently Lego Batman later. I have. Can't wait till that moment comes because I have a lot of things to say. Give us your next one.
My number 6 is a movie that we kind of briefly mentioned, but it's a sequel to it, How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Okay. Number 2 is on the list. You're the only one to have it, so please let me know.
All right.
What do you think about it?
How to Train Your Dragon 2 is a movie that I saw in 2014, and this is like the era of when I'm really just starting to get into like movies in general, really getting into it with like Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier. Like prior to that, I just get super invested into the films, and I was a big fan of How to Train Your Dragon prior to that, and then to see the sequel, and it just left me in the theater like in awe. And the second, where can we talk spoilers about movies?
Are you talking about the third one?
No, we're talking about the second.
Oh,
5 years, man.
Go watch.
Okay.
This is the wrong show. I don't care about people's feelings, so let's move.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So yeah, when Toothless kills Hiccup's father, it was just one of the moments where like my jaw just dropped, and it was one of those moments where it's like this is what film can do, and where you get so emotionally invested, and it's more of an emotional pick for me. So yeah, that's why I picked How to Train Your Dragon 2. I think it's a great movie.
All right. Sure. I absolutely love How to Train Your Dragon 2. I think it is. When I left the third one, I have How to Train Your Dragon 2 higher than the first one. Then the first one, then the third one. I almost think it is on par or better than the Toy Story trilogy. I've been on record of saying that. I think they're amazing movies. Again, I don't think in 2010 animation you're ever going to have one that's just like, they really sucked that up. They're pretty good at what they're doing across the board at this point. But yeah, it's a beautiful film. I couldn't agree more. Cain, you get 2 approvals from me already on the show. No wonder we're tag team partners. Go to your next one and see.
My number 5?
Uh-huh.
All right, my number 5 is the 2010's hit Tangled.
Anybody else? Why the hell do I include any of you people on that list? You are terrible people. Terrible people, but it's Cain's turn to talk, not Brooklyn, so go ahead and tell us why.
I'm just baffled at this moment.
I'm a little shocked too. It's not I had to sit there and look at this. I had to look at them and
I've only seen this movie once, and that was about 4 years ago, and I barely remember it.
Okay. Well, Tangled is just, it's one of those movies where you just watch. I didn't watch Tangled for the first time till last year. And when I watched it, it was one of those things that was like, holy shit. Like, this is not just like a princess movie. It's this just adventurous movie of someone just wanting to go out and live their life, but they feel restricted. And that's going to be kind of like a theme going on in the future of these lists. But yeah, it's this certain like Disney magic. And I think Flynn Rider is just one of the coolest characters in Disney animation. I think this is a story that is just, it's great. It has arguably one of the most beautiful scenes with the I See the Light with the lanterns and all that. I think that's just one of the most beautiful scenes in animation, period. And I don't know. I'm really just surprised. I thought we were talking about this like way later, but no.
Yeah, this was the hardest one for me. I've been on record to say that Tangled is probably my favorite Disney movie of the 2010s. I think it is. I think the music plays along perfectly. I think the characters, the side characters, the overall magic of it. It's not a traditional princess film. It's pretty great for me. It's only gotten better over rewatches. So when I saw this come in and I tried to work the rankings and do whatever I could to get it on the list, I unfortunately couldn't because 2 people did not have it on there. 1 person did, and it was middle of the road. So, yeah, that's rough. That's the way it works. That's how the show works, and that's why I get to be very angry at the end of it. And go one more spot. Tell us your final one before we get to your personal top 3.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, my number 4 was definitely a punt from earlier, or wait, we don't say that word, a push or whatever.
I yikes.
Yeah, yikes. A yikes from earlier.
That's perfect.
A yikes from earlier. How to Train Your Dragon, the original one.
All right, Nazario and Cain, talk about why you like this movie and why maybe Nazario doesn't have it as high, and Cain, why you have it as high as you do, and Brooklyn, tell us why you hate great animation.
I can go first. This is the only one of the How to Train Your Dragon movies that actually made my top 10. I like all 3. I disagree with the fact that you say that the second one is the best. I think this is the best. I feel it's the most complete story. It's kind of a coming-of-age story for Hiccup as much as it is the story of Toothless. It goes to a very serious place because it starts with him basically maiming this animal. And even though that's the way the relationship starts, they actually become friends. I think it's also the most complete because it goes through a whole cycle of he actually studying and learning things about the creatures and why it's better for them to live together and share life instead of them just hunting them. And it ends in such a great place, and it's such an open possibility thing that it's a beautiful film. I really think it's the best of the trilogy and probably the best of DreamWorks in 2010s.
Okay, and Cain, tell us why it ranks so high for you.
I really agree with Nazario towards the end. I think this is just one of DreamWorks' best, period. I think the relationship of like that like you and your dog kind of like relationship you have with Hiccup and Toothless, I think that is just done really excellently. I think definitely the scene where Hiccup goes from this guy who has no way in the world of defeating a dragon to he's now top of the class. I thought that was really cool. I just think there's so many things. I think John Powell's score is arguably one of my favorite scores of all time. There's so much good about this movie to the point it's just I'm really mad at Brooklyn.
Yeah, pretty much. Before we get to Nazario, I just want to shout out the chat. Jonathan Peck, Multiplex Entertainment. Good job, Brooklyn, for popping in there. Paul, I already said Jonathan Peck. Cain, you're even in there. Malcolm. So thanks for watching along. Full Metal. So thanks for joining in for the first episode. Nazario, break my heart some more probably. And tell us what is your next one.
My number 7, it's Gore Verbinski's Rango.
Anybody else got Rango?
It's actually kind of brilliant movie. They made a kids movie that is not for kids. This movie is for people who love film. It's a take on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's a take on westerns. It has homages to Clint Eastwood. It's really smart, and it's one of the best Johnny Depp performances as the main character Rango, this little lizard that drops out of a car in the middle of the desert and ends up saving a town. It has incredible story arcs, and it just, if you love the films it references, it kind of like fills you up, and it's imaginative. It has weird animation, but at the same time beautiful. It's an interesting film, and I think it deserves a spot in this list.
Okay. Yeah. Saw Ringo once. Not a huge fan. Didn't stand out to me. All right. Your next one. Please tell us again. I already know what's coming. It's been brought up on something else. I actually watched it. I will share my opinion after, but tell us why it made your list.
My next pick is Anomalisa. It's
Anybody got it? Anybody got it? Brooklyn doesn't even know what the hell it is. So let's move on and tell us why this made your list.
This movie is actually what shows you what the great things you can get done with animation. This movie basically was kind of kickstarted for about 10 years before, when they got enough money to film it. It's a story about a guy who may be suffering from a delusion where he cannot tell people apart because everybody feels same-ish. And they achieve this by doing it, making every single other character share the same face and the same voice actor. And David Thewlis shines in the main role as this guy who suffers from this, and is just looking for something different. And he happens to find the one woman that actually has a distinct face and voice, and he hangs onto her for dear life. And it shows you how beautifully detailed stop animation can be, again, because they go into such minute details, and usually they go for fantastic worlds. And this is the most basic thing. It's a guy in a hotel room just going from the bar to the hotel room for the most of the movie and interacting between a few people. It's an adult film made on an animated medium that is not usually used for adult stories. And even if it, as simple as it is, I don't think it would have worked as great if it had just been a couple of actors in a room. It's a brilliant film. I really think that Charlie Kaufman shines, like always, as a screenwriter, and I tell all of you to go see it if you haven't.
Yeah, Robert Parker brought this up on a Full Metal 5 before it went over to Confidential Cinema. And I've never seen it. I was like, what are we talking about? I watched it. It's a very beautiful film. I don't know if it'd rank it. I have to watch it some more before I would give it that spot, but I understand completely. And I'm glad you brought it up, because maybe it'll get more people to go see that film, because I think more eyes need to be on it. Oh, by the way, Paul Oyama, with another opinion, he says Rango is great. So he agrees with you. So another reason I don't like Paul Oyama. Okay, so give us your next one.
My number 5 is the best Pixar film of the 2010s, which is Inside Out.
That is, that's a yikes. We'll be talking about that later.
Okay. And your next one.
And number 4, it's another, I think it's my last stop animation of the list. I know I like it a lot, but still. And it's also by Leica, the makers of Paranorman. It's actually what I think their second best film ever made, because sadly their first best animated couldn't make this list because it was released in 2009, which was Coraline. But this one is Kubo and the Two Strings.
Anybody got Kubo?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Kubo was the one movie I really wanted to see before I made this list, but I could not find it anywhere. So I don't.
That's fair. Okay. So, Nazario, tell us why these guys are idiots for not having Kubo on their list, or not seeing it by now.
This is the total opposite of Anomalisa, which is a really personal story in a very real world. This is a very fantastical story done with a similar animation method. It's a story about a little Asian kid that lives with his mother that can only come alive at night. She's in kind of a comatose state during the whole day, so he has to take care of her, and he has to go to town to just make money. And how does he do that? He does it by telling stories with his magical 2-string instrument, which actually should be 3 strings, but one got broken. And he can actually make little paper dolls and of origami and tells magical stories because they come alive. And he has to be careful about not being outside at night because his mom keeps telling him that the Moon King will come for him. And going deeper into this is just going into a very fantastical, very visual, very interesting adventure story that is not in the usual format that the Western stories go. It's more of the original art style from Asia. And it's a really beautiful film. with a really great message, incredible voice acting. Even Matthew McConaughey, which I don't love all the time, is great in this movie with voice acting. Charlize Theron kills it like she always does. And yeah, I think Rooney Mara's in this and Ralph Fiennes. It's really a great story, visually entertained, and I really recommend anybody who hasn't seen it to go watch it. It's a really great film.
Yes, I agree, Kubo. Again, it's always rough for me when I make a top 10 list for movies to stand out right that just came out recently because I watch them enough. But no, I wouldn't disagree for it being on this list. Maybe a little higher for me, less it would be lower for me, but it definitely would make my list. So I get it. All right, guys. I wouldn't normally do this on any other show, but can all three at the same time announce your number 3?
Can we get a count?
1, 2, 3.
Spider-Man. Spiders.
You guys did the one thing. You all put the same spot on all your lists. So we'll go one by one. Nazario, you'll start because this is actually your. This is whoever. You can just start talking. Tell me why this movie has stood out for you guys. It just came out last year. Why is it this high on your list? Just give us those reasons.
So similar to why I feel that Zootopia is one of the best in terms of like photorealistic animation, I think this is the most accurate way of taking literal comic book to film. As the film goes, you just get more amazed with the drawing and the once again the production and like just the fine little details like adding in those dots on you see them like desk tables and walls and stuff. And I think it's just that's that attention to detail and that borderline perfectionism that gets it as high up as it is for me. We'll get into the story, but just this like to focus on that first is beautiful.
This is the best Spider-Man film made so far. And that is counting 6 live-action films and I guess already 2 or 3 appearances in other MCU films. Yeah. And they finally got what Spider-Man is completely right. And they did it with a guy who feels beat up about not really being Spider-Man and a little kid that is actually another dimension Spider-Man. Also, to Brooklyn's point with the animation, I don't know how they did this. Every single character brought in from the multiverse almost every character is animated in a completely different style. One is anime, one is noir. Spider-Ham is basically Looney Tunes. And somehow it feels like they belong together while being completely separate at the same time. I really cannot express how beautiful this film is just to watch and see it. The soundtrack is kick-ass. By the way,
Post Malone
you would never believe that kind of music would fit Spider-Man so well, but it is. It's great.
King?
Yeah, I agree with everything they said. The soundtrack's great. The animation's fantastic. The whole story of that anyone can be Spider-Man is something that was just very... the movie came out at almost the perfect timing, especially after Stan Lee passed away, and then have this message go almost, I think, elevated in a very silent way, where it's like, yeah, anyone can be Spider-Man, and then to see that cameo just elevates the movie to kind of like a weird spot because it just came out the perfect timing.
I really think that cameo it's brilliant, and the message he literally says like everybody, he says do you think it would fit? Because he's talking about a costume, and at the same time he's talking about being Spider-Man. He's like, it will fit eventually. Yeah, and it's so sweet. And then they show the sign with no refunds.
Yeah,
brilliant, man.
And then just the whole part where Miles takes who he is and becomes Spider-Man of his universe or dimension. That whole scene where he's going to go save all the other Spider-Man because of the super collider. It's a phenomenal scene. You get goosebumps. This movie is everything I've ever wanted in a Spider-Man movie and more. And I never expected to get it.
I'm gonna piss off Cody for what I'm about to say. I think they put the right amount of cheese in here with a nice grilled cheese sandwich. I think I didn't realize that I wanted John Mulaney as Spider-Ham. I was curious to see how they're gonna go with it, but essentially what I got was they're gonna let John Mulaney be John Mulaney, and I had the biggest fucking grin on my face whenever they're introducing the anime Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Noir, and then John Mulaney walks in, and it's just oh my god, this is fucking awesome. like me personally, I'm a huge fan of John Layton. I think he's the best stand-up comic working today. And I think I got it right. I got right off the bat that this is a very Lord Miller sort of movie. I could tell just from the script and the way people interacted. That father-son relationship, I think, is at its best, and I think that's a central theme with a lot of their movies. It's that it's more so that relationship and how it can be obscure and how can be sort of tough to get the relationship, especially through adolescent years.
Especially also the relationship with his uncle. That was also just done well.
Well, just real quick, I'll bring it kind of back in. Paul says the leap of faith in the movie. Is also a huge part. The question I have for you guys, is it because it's too soon why it doesn't crack your top 1 or 2, or do you think over time with more revisits, do you think it has a shot of cracking your 1 or 2 without saying what your 1 or 2 is?
I will go first. It's gonna be really hard for it to crack number 2 and number 1. Just based on the opinions that I have on those other 2, but I think 3 for 2010's is nothing to sort of kick yourself on. I could be wrong though.
Okay.
I would never say never, especially because my number 2 is a movie that when I first saw it wouldn't have been in my top 10, but then after rewatch it just gets better and better. So Spider-Verse can do the same, but to crack number 1, it has to have so many things to do that, and I don't know if it's possible, but I don't want to say it's not possible.
Nazario?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's fair. I didn't know if it hits that spot because it's just that new, and that's fair. That's your list. I wouldn't tell you anywhere. I would probably put it in the exact same location you guys did. This movie, I think movies have different. When you go in with low expectations of something, just you want to give it a shot. You've heard stuff about it, but let's just go see what it's about. And it hits on these kind of levels. That's what makes this movie incredible. So, all right. We're at the top 2 of each person's list. Brooklyn, give us your 1 and tell us why it ranks.
1 or 2?
No, you're 2. Sorry.
2?
Tell us your 2 and tell us why it ranks as high as it does for you.
All right, so number 2 is Inside Out.
So, Nazario, you're free to chat about this after he's done talking and vice versa. So, okay.
Inside Out is one of a handful of movies that I have watched once and will only watch once. I watched, and it's more so the timing of when I watched this movie. When I watched this movie, I was struggling with, I still struggle with it now, but depression and anxiety was something that I was afraid to admit that I was going through. At the time, I had sort of had to put mental health on the back burner, and I was like, I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm just going to get everything done, and I'm going to focus on other people before I do it myself. And then I watched this movie, and then at the end of it, I was bawling. I was bawling for a solid half hour. This movie is melancholy from start to finish. The way that they progress throughout the film, and that how it's essentially like sadness can't be here. We need joy. We need joy. Joy is going to mask everything. I think that really speaks to how a lot of people struggle with mental health. Is that it's just we're gonna coat sadness. We're gonna coat sadness with joy. If we are happy, then nobody could see our inner demons and what we're struggling with. The thing that sort of got me was that when I was talking to people about it, it was that everybody would cry at whenever Bing Bong died. Spoilers, Bing Bong dies. A lot of people cry during that moment. I didn't actually cry during that. It was whenever they accepted sadness, and then that was sort of that's like the cherry on top, and that's like, cool, I'm done. This is a perfect movie. Actually not perfect, but pretty darn perfect. And yeah, just I didn't realize I could get that emotion from an animated movie.
So you think you'll never watch this movie again?
Never.
Okay.
The emotion that I had in that is
you want to hold on.
That's the hardest I've ever cried for a movie.
Okay. Nazario, tell us why it didn't rank as high for you, but why it definitely deserves on this list, and Cain kind of tell us why you didn't have it on yours.
like I said, it's the best Pixar movie they have made in the 2010s. They found an incredible way to show the struggle of emotions visually, which is always a difficult thing to do. And I actually feel the same as with most things. And the part when they show you that sadness is part of who you have to be to grow up, it's done beautifully. The music in this film is also just otherworldly. I mean, they find a way to make a simple piano ballad develop and grow as long as the movie's going on to show growth. And they have music pieces for each of the emotions that even without watching it on the screen, you can tell how different they are. And this movie always makes me think of an old Epcot Center, or Epcot just now, ride that doesn't exist anymore, sadly, that I rode when I was 11 years old in 1990, called Cranium Command, which was a similar concept, but done in a theater with a ride where a little kid was trying to move the emotions of the body with they were little soldiers and stuff. And I think I saw one interview where the director of this film said that it was one of the points that actually made him think he could develop it into a visual movie. It's a beautiful film.
All right, and Cain, just real quick,
This movie is a movie where it's not like I hate it or anything. It just, I guess it just didn't hit me like other movies have, and I didn't have that connection like you guys clearly did. So that's just why I didn't make my time done. I thought it was an okay movie.
I kind of agree with not that it's saying it would still make my list. It just hurts on rewatches, so I kind of wish I was like Brooklyn and never revisited it, because once you know it and once you see it, it loses a bit of the magic. I also think the short that plays before Inside Out is also I loved it. The lava one, I thought that was really good short from them. So it's kind of a great piece together. But all right, we're going to Cain. Tell us your two.
So we're gonna stay in the same company because I think this film is the best Pixar movie of all time, and that is Coco.
That was my number 4.
All right, so tell us why Coco ranks as high as it does for you.
So like I said a little bit earlier when I was talking about Spider-Verse, this is a movie when I first watched it. We went to go see like The Disaster Artist. We had no intention of watching Coco, and apparently we were a week too soon for the movie. And we're like, well, we drove out here, so we're gonna go see a movie. We saw Coco, and I saw it. I was like, it's okay. But then everyone was like, it's so good. And like, I have friends who were literally crying because of the movie. I'm like, okay, maybe I should go back and see it. So I went back and saw it, and I was like, this movie's phenomenal. This movie, animated wise, is stunning. The whole like Land of the Dead, how like when the bridge and the leaves are just falling, it's stunning. I think it's one of the most beautiful stories because it's a guy who just wants to follow his dream, but his family's like, you can't do that. You're just not allowed to do that. There's no reason, like there is a reason why, but the reason doesn't really make sense in a little boy's eyes, and all he wants to do is just become a musician, and he feels this restriction, so he has to go to the land of the dead, and just like he wants to do it so bad that he goes to this major extreme. And I think that story, those are the stories I like the most. I think I can relate to it a little bit more. And I don't know. That's just it. It hits you a lot. The whole "Remember Me" sequence. I think every song in this movie is just fantastic. There's not a bad song in it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna completely agree. Oh, sorry.
Can I add a little something here?
Yeah, sure.
Very quickly. This is one movie that actually can do what Cody mentioned before. I think on a few rewatches, this movie will probably crack my top 10. I don't know how far it will go in, but I think maybe because I'm Latino, I'm from Central America, it was very identifiable for me. I understand that the visuals and the Day of the Dead thing feels like really visual striking for most people who are not normal with this culture. Like, but to me that part was okay. But the thing about the grandma just sitting with the family and the grandma taking care of the older grandmother, that is just that's slice of life. And even the thing about the "Remember Me" sequence is I feel that right here when they sing La Llorona. Oh man, that also would really touch me, because that part feels very true to me. And I have seen this movie 3 times. The first time was on my birthday, and I really liked it, but I thought it was just a good movie. Second time got better. Third time got better. And yeah, this is one of the ones I had barely out of the top 10, and I'm definitely sure it's gonna keep moving up.
Yeah, like I've watched this movie maybe like 10 times, and it took every single time I watched it, it just got higher and higher and higher. So it's one of those weird movies that every time you watch it, you just appreciate it more.
I love how Pixar was able to sort of like walk this tightrope perfectly, because when you think about it, like if you take a step back and sort of observe the movie as a whole, they're trying to talk to kids about death and how it's just and that can be a very hard subject to tackle. And I think they tackled that beautifully in the way that it's like that they present sort of not like a religious standpoint, but it's like, there might be some form of afterlife and whatnot, and that that there is life, that there can be life after death, and that there are still memories from those that we have lost. I'm actually surprised that I didn't cry at this movie. Got really close whenever they started playing "Remember Me." I think that was super heartfelt. I agree with Cain that the music in this is glorious. And yeah, I think like once again, it's another beautifully animated Pixar film, and they just hit it out of the park.
Yeah, this movie is one of those that I watched. I didn't have expectations when it got released. I was like, okay, Book of Life came out. What are you going to possibly do to try to top that, or are you just going to revisit the same old? And by the end of it, I was bawling my eyes out. I think this movie is brilliant. I've watched it a couple times. It keeps growing on my list. Yeah, so I'm okay with it not being number one. I wouldn't possibly put it at number one either. Well, we'll talk about it in a second compared to what you guys got. But Coco is a brilliant, brilliant movie. I think it touches, and I think it tells a story that needs to be told, because I think that's one of those things that kind of like what Black Panther did, what other thing, it represented what they haven't seen before, and I liked what Pixar did, and I think they stayed pretty true, as well as I would, see they would. All right. Nazario, I'm going to hear Robert Parker scream from a distance, but tell us what your number 2 is.
I think it's pretty obvious that I am into animation and into toys a lot. I'm a toy collector, a very old person that still really enjoys his toys, and I don't just buy the ones I keep in boxes. I also have the ones I actually display and play with. And as a person who appreciates that kind of art, the Toy Story films have always reached me in a way that I don't know. It's a series that grew with me, and yet it always made me remember about those toys that when I was a kid that I really loved, and for some reason I didn't know where they end up with. And actually makes me sad to think about that. And this movie embodies that. Toy Story 3, the culmination of what it was originally a great trilogy. I don't have no idea what Toy Story 4 is gonna do to try to be better than this. It basically was about this. What happens to your toys when you grow up? And the way they tried to handle it, about how they move to other people. My mom used to take my toys and give them away all the time to needy children. So I know what that feels like. But seeing it from the point of view of a toy, it's something so interesting in concept. And the way in the end, he just really decides to pass them on to somebody who can love them as much as he loved them. I got me bawling in the theater. I really, really cried in this movie, because it reached me in a way that I don't think other movies, animated movies about kids growing up, have gotten me before, because it was from the point of something I love, which is the toys. And even though I think it's a basically perfect movie, I still don't think it's the best of the trilogy, because the second one, to me, it's so good.
This guy.
But I cannot say anything. I mean, it's so great that it just sticks with you. And I have seen this movie like 100 times, and it never gets any worse. It doesn't get boring. It's just so perfect.
Yeah, this one takes you on a lot of turns. Whenever I watched it for the first time, when they are all like circling around, going into the fire, I was like, somebody could die, and I wouldn't be super pissed. I wouldn't be super pissed about it. Like I feel like it's almost like a win-win for them, where they could have killed somebody off, and that would have that you could have twisted that in a way for it to make sense. But I think it's just a way. It proves that Pixar can sort of take this one sort of small core that was the original Toy Story, and then Toy Story 2, they just add another layer, and I agree with Azario, Toy Story 2 is the best of the trilogy. Toy Story 3 adds yet another layer, and it doesn't get too convoluted. I think there are definitely more subplots, but nothing gets too overwhelming. I think Barbie has a good subplot with Ken. I thought Michael Keaton stole every scene that he was in.
Yes.
Lotso Bear was good. You could sort of see his twist coming, but I think they were able to sort of get the craziness of the daycare, and I think that was a sort of a lighthearted moment in the way that they set it up, where it was like, we're gonna be really happy for a bit, and then we're gonna hit you with the feels in about a half an hour.
All right, Cain, why did Toy Story 3 miss your list?
It's simple. I've seen it once in theaters, and that was the last time I saw it. Growing up, I mean, by the time I was born, Toy Story was already out for 2 years. So growing up, I just never had a connection to the Toy Story trilogy. I've seen them, and I think they're good movies, but I don't have the connection to them, and I just never rewatched 3.
Fair enough. All right, chat. The general public rewatching. Brace yourselves, because these number ones make children cry. This is literally what they would show to kids in like those Sarah McLachlan videos that you can donate, make a difference, to make them cry on command. Brooklyn, please.
Are we doing honorable mentions later?
Oh, sure. Let's go through your honorable mentions. That's actually a really good point, Rosario. Brooklyn, tell us what missed your list, and just give us a quick thing. So
the only one that I was really hoping to get on there, but it couldn't get on there because of the rule that we had that had to be theatrically released. I was going to put on Justice League vs. Teen Titans. I think the DCAU has been on fire.
We're adults here, so
yeah. Okay, that was the only one I wanted to mention.
Okay, Cain, what missed your list?
So 2 films that I thought could have made the list, but they didn't, was the original Despicable Me. I thought that was a pretty solid film. I thought even Hotel Transylvania was solid. I thought, but if we could have done direct to DVD films, I would have also done a DC animated film.
What are we doing here?
And that would have been no. This film is phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, it's on my video. It's Batman Under the Red Hood. It is a phenomenal film.
Your list sucks. Okay. Thanks. I will never do a show on that topic. I promise you that. Nazario, tell us.
Movies that barely got out of my top 10 that got mentioned here: Coco, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen. I don't know if it got mentioned, but yeah, it's close to a top 10 movie. Tangled, which is the movie that actually brought back this style of movie. There would be no Frozen or no Moana without Tangled. A movie that stop animation. I have a couple more that barely got out, and my number 11 actually was I Love Dog by Wes Anderson, which is a brilliant film. Everybody should watch it. Frankenweenie by Tim Burton is another great film that actually grew on me on rewatches. I didn't like it as much the first time, but it's gotten better when I watched it. Other than that, The Wind Rises by Miyazaki is a great film. And apparently we all ask about direct-to-video movies because I actually wanted to put Dark Knight Returns part 1 and 2 because
we will never have you 3 on the show again. You devil people. Okay. Go ahead, Brooklyn. Ruin everybody's hopes and dreams and love in the world and piss me off.
All right, so I'm going to tell you why the Lego Batman movie is the greatest animated movie of the 2010s and one of the best comic book movies ever made.
Okay, please spit it out because I'm about to throw up.
This was a movie that was made at the right place at the right time. You think about DC in general and the way that they were handling their theatrically released live action movies. They were trying to echo what The Dark Knight did, and they were going for that gritty, realistic take that it was dark. And then they were like, you know what? We need to start poking fun at ourselves and realize that we've made mistakes. And then they make Lego Batman, a spin-off of the Lego movie itself. It speaks to my style of humor because I love spoof and I love making fun of shit. And I think that the way that it's very meta and very fourth wall breaking, and the way that they sort of punch themselves in the face, I think is great. On top of a beautifully animated movie, you think about like all the colors that are involved in this. This could have been jumbled into sort of one mess, and I think that the way that they balance everything out looks phenomenal. Will Arnett, I didn't know I wanted him as Batman. Ray Fiennes was awesome as Alfred. Rosario Dawson. Michael Cera is literally just being Michael Cera, and it works as Robin. I think that is great. Coming out of this movie, I wanted a Lego Justice League movie like yesterday. I think a Lego Justice League movie is what we need, and if they just do what Lego Batman did and just sort of expand it out a little bit more, I think that would be great. Also, this is probably the closest thing that we're getting to a Robot Chicken DC sort of movie in that style of like script and humor. So come at me. I
hate everything about you, to be honest with you. I'll let Cain talk in a second for a short bit, but this is trash. This is one of the first movies. I'm on record with saying I hate the Lego movies with a passion. I think they are overrated, trash, and garbage. The whole viewpoint is that the only reason I want a Justice League Lego movie if they take on the mom stars from Space Jam or a full Lego NBA set, because that would be the only thing that would make me halfway decent to see this movie. Cain, please tell me why you are still a child and like Legos.
Okay. Here's the thing. Like, I think number one is really high for the Lego Batman movie. I think that is really high. Lego Batman movie, I think, is one of the best relationships we see between Joker and Batman. I will say that. I think the movie has a lot of jokes, but at the same time, in reality, this movie, it's not Batman, if that makes sense. Batman, this does not seem like the character of Batman. This is a Lego version of him. And with that's why it cannot be higher for me, because it takes the character of Batman and kind of just like makes him goofy and everything. And it go ahead.
I will wholeheartedly.
Cain's turn, and then I'm gonna let Nazario, and then maybe I'll let you come back. I don't know. I'm pretty disappointed in you. You brought up an animated DC movie. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of cool things about this. It's a funny movie, but to say it's the best of the 2010s is kind of crazy. Spider-Verse is a movie that does all of everything that like a Batman movie does, but then gives you heart with it as well. So I'm kind of surprised.
All right, Nazario, Batman guy, Batman expert, please tell me why you think Brooklyn's a nutcase for having this on the top 10 list.
The movie's funny, I give it that, but it's not true to the Batman character itself, like Cain said. It is not even the best Lego movie. There's two movies that are better than this one, just in the Lego canon. And yes, it's funny. Yes, it's entertaining. I do like Will Arnett as Batman. I do like the way they cast the characters, but I was expecting so much from it. They bring out so many obscure characters from the Batman canon itself, and I just wanted them to like use them, and they just use them for one joke and throw them away. And then the movie goes into a completely different place. It's good about the family message that you need each other. It's good about showing how Batman always tries to be a loner and tries to be funny, but I think it doesn't really get to the heart of who Batman is. And I know I am very demanding with this because it's the same reason why I was arguing the other day that the warehouse scene in Batman versus Superman is not a good scene because it betrays what Batman is. And I feel this movie does this. And to see that movie this flawed while funny, you think it's the best of the decade? I cannot get there, not by a long shot. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry. So the reason
real quick, rebut and real quick, and then move on. Go ahead.
The reason why I disagree with Cain Saban and how this is not a Batman, because if this isn't Batman, then Alec Baldwin is not impersonating the true Donald Trump. I think Will Arnett is taking certain characteristics of Batman and dialing them up to 11, similar to how Alec Baldwin does Donald Trump on SNL.
Okay, but
That is where it is.
Okay.
No.
Nope. Episode 1, and you literally had to bring up Donald Trump. This is why I don't include you on things. You ruined my life. Damn you, Brooklyn. Your list sucks, and you just in general suck. Polo Yama's in the chat. I'm definitely getting Polo Yama on this thing because he'll make this list thing way harder because he's got some choices. He's probably correct because it's Polo Yama, and he can't be wrong. But, Cain, tell us what your number 1 is, and oh boy, here we go.
You say, "Oh boy," like you're not surprised.
I'm not surprised, but I think the people watching will be a little surprised. Go ahead.
No, they wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty vocal about it. Moana. It's a great movie. Great movie.
It's great. It's brilliant.
It's so good though. It sounds a lot like I'm talking about Coco again, but it's a movie about a girl who is trapped on an island, like physically trapped, and all she wants to do is go out there and follow her dreams. And she's physically restrained to an island, and then the second she gets to do it, it involves the death of her grandmother, which kind of is like dark, but very classic Disney. Someone dies. I think Dwayne Johnson is one of the best side characters that we've had since like Genie. I thought he's so charismatic. I think the animal sidekicks are great. This movie is very meta. I understand that people don't like Tamatoa. I think Tamatoa just grows on me after a while. I accept it. And this is a movie that literally I watched it because I didn't see it in theater, and that's like a regret of mine. But I watched it and I immediately watched it again. And it's one of very few movies I've ever done that. This movie, I don't know what it is, but it's so great. It's brilliant. I love it.
Okay, Brooklyn, Nazario, 2-sentence blurb why you think Moana is too high up.
I've never seen Moana, so I can't say that.
You're a child. Go ahead, Nazario.
It's a good movie, good message, but like I said, it's there's 2 movies that do similar better, Tangled and Frozen.
Okay, fair enough. I also think it has one of the worst Disney songs ever in the history of Disney, and that's Shiny. That thing's a piece of shit, but the rest of the movie I really enjoyed. And Nazario, break my heart some more, you big child. You tell me why this godforsaken movie is number 1.
I think Brooklyn was close with Lego in the title, but he just missed the movie because the best movie of the 2010s is actually the Lego movie. And I don't say this just as an a fan of Lego, which I am. I actually have so many boxes that I haven't been opened that I actually am in my kid's room, and there's 2 boxes right there because I didn't have any space to put them in. So this movie, not just because I love Lego, because they have made a lot of crap. If you've seen the direct-to-DVD movies they make, those are just awful. But they got Phil Lord and Miller in this movie, and they found something magical in it. They got to what the heart of this actually little toy with the plastic brick pieces is, which is imagination. How you can use them. Yes, you can build the things that come out of the box, but you can actually build these whole worlds that are magical. And as a kid, you have no limit. And then, even as entertaining as it was, just with the adventure and they changing from the city to the western to the magical cuckoo land place and everything that was happening, and bringing all these fun licenses to deal with, they actually used the Will Arnett Batman here in a smarter way than I think they did in the actual Lego Batman movie. They just go in the end to that place where it actually just got me and never let me go, which is, like I said, the grown-ups and the toys. And it results to, it's a spoiler because it's a 5-year-old movie, but whatever, that the movie's all just taking place in an adult fan of Lego's basement who has this gigantic city build, and his kid is playing and messing things up. And at the time, I didn't have a kid yet, so I was like, fuck this kid. I mean, what the fuck are you touching all my toys? Those are exhibition things. Go play with your corner. And then I had my kid. And there he started breaking my sets, my 3,000, 4,000 piece sets that I had put in display because I find them beautiful. And then I come from work and my kid broke them and it's in pieces in the floor, and I just start crying. And then I understood this movie. It is just about the relationship between fathers and kids and passing on beautiful things like the love for toys. This movie is almost perfect. And the sequel is so good. It's so good, but it just cannot come close to the original feels I got from this. And like I said, as I became a father, I understood it more, and the movie morphed in my mind. And I don't think that anything that could come out this year can do better than this for the best movie of the decade.
That was beautiful. That was really beautiful, but I hated everything you said. Brooklyn, didn't you have this on your list?
I do have this on my list.
Of course you did,
number like
give me
5, I think.
Give me a quick, pretty much blurb because we're running a little over on time.
So to a degree with Nazario, I think they have another great father-son relationship where I think Will Ferrell's character sort of forgets that forgets that these are toys and that this is sort of where imagination begins. This for me is sort of like the baseline of like if you want good Lord and Miller like sort of script and directing and like sort of like their pace and whatnot. This is the prime example because I think their pace is fast and it's like get as many jokes in as you can. Take that little breather that is sort of like become prominent in their movies and then get right back into it. And this is actually my best theater experience in a movie. Because first time I saw a movie by myself in a theater, and there was like maybe 6 other people, and I had a grin on my face from start to finish.
Oof. Okay. Cain, do you want to say a quick 2-sentence why Lego Movie does not deserve to be that high?
I doesn't care for the jokes.
Yeah, not funny. That's just me too. Okay, so guys, ready for your personal top 10? What you guys have come up with? So. Number 10, Kubo and the Two Strings. Number 9, Zootopia. Number 8, How to Train Your Dragon. Number 7, Moana. I lost a pot. 5, Toy Story 3.
Wait, no, you're on 7.
Number 6, Toy Story 3. Number 5, The Lego Batman. Number 4, The Lego Movie. Number 3, Inside Out. Number 2, Coco. And your number 1 overall is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, with all having it at the top 3 spot. That is your top 10. I would basically rank your list as this. Okay. Disappointing. At some sports, there's 2 Lego movies that don't deserve to be on that list, not even close. But I think you'll do better than what Koho would have done. So I appreciate you all for being on this panel. And for my first episode, again, guys, next week's episode, we'll wrap this up real quick. Actually, before we go there, Nazario, Brooklyn, Cain, give a quick blurb how you thought about the top 10 combined. Are you okay with the list? Do you think it sucks? Tell me what.
You can definitely tell that there are some films that are on individual lists, and the films that kind of like were on multiple lists are the ones that made it to the top. Just makes sense.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Do you grade our individual list?
I do not grade your individuals. That may be in a future list. By looking, Cain won this list. Nazario came in second. Brooklyn came in deep last. He had fucking Minions on it and Lego Batman. That is an F. You actually flunked out of school. Enjoy working somewhere else, and you're never going to college. But basically, how this list is, you're still better than Koho. Just remember all that. Actually, Brooklyn, you might be tied. But next week's episode, live-action Disney movies. We're doing it next week. I should have waited till Aladdin, but I've already scheduled it. So guess what? I don't care. Live action. The people on the panel will be Kaleb Koho,
Oof.
Ryan Permison.
Oof.
I am looking for a third person right now. The third person I had dropped out. So if you're interested, please shoot me a message on Facebook. Again, I do not come by first served basis. I will grade on who can mess with that chaos. And if you think this episode was bad, wait until that list, because that list is guaranteed to suck. Have a good night. See you later.
Oh, sorry.